Hello, friends. I hope spring has sprung wherever you are, and this is the RR Show. I'm Vince. Let me look at the show notes for today. Jeez, I just lost them. Hang on. Let me pull this up. Okay, got it. We're going to be doing 2 from Malicious Compliance, 2 from TIFU. So let's do this episode of the RR Show right now. Our first story comes from r/malicious compliance, posted by user Billiam201. Don't want to pay 4 guys to not work for 6 hours? Okay, you can pay 30 guys to not work for 6 hours. To make an already long story as short as possible, some background. I'm a manager for a North American railroad company, and a lot of our work involves different crafts of employees. Different crafts have different unions and different work rules. The managers of the other crafts and I work together well to get done what we need to get done, especially when some of the work needs to get done at night. The track guys can have a crew assigned to nights, while the signal guys can't. Even better, the signal guys who work overnight have to be let go after 12 hours, and if it's now their regular shift because they came in last night, they get paid the rest of the day to go home and sleep. Track guys have all 3 shifts, but we only have a day shift and an evening shift, but no night shift, because the big hats don't want to hire enough people to do it. Now, the company has decided that paying guys to go home 2 hours early on a Thursday, come in and work overtime all night at 10 p.m., and go home at 10 a.m., getting another 4 hours of pay to go home and sleep is the ending of all that is good and pure in the universe, and will eventually lead to the collapse of capitalism, the nation, and indeed the universe itself. So they decide that the second shift guys have to stay 4 extra hours, and the first shift guys have to come in 4 hours early. I point out that 1, I can't force employees to work overtime unless it's an emergency, and the union isn't likely to agree that we want to do this at night so we don't affect traffic is an emergency. 2, not all employees are qualified on the same things. 3, since they took half of my trucks away 5 years ago because savings, I don't have enough vehicles for an entire second crew to show up at 2 a.m. and relieve the guys working in the field so they can go home. The guys currently working will have to stop work, pack up the tools, drive back to the office, let the smaller relief crew load up, drive back out to the work site, and do the starting paperwork and briefings and begin the work. And most importantly, 4, that while we aren't there, the track guys can't work because we have to keep taking things off the rail so the track guys can do their work and then put them back when the guys are done so we can run the trains in the morning. All of it falls on deaf ears because the freckle-faced college kid who opens every conversation with "I have an MBA, damn it," who has somehow gotten to a position where he's in charge of the estimates, wants to complain about those 24 hours a night. So, after having gone on the meeting record for all of it, I get out of the kid's way. I decide that if my boss isn't going to have my back, I'm not going to stop this inevitable disaster. After all, I have only been doing this for 27 years, but he graduated with a 3.6 GPA from UTEP, so he must know better. So the first night, the job grinds to a halt like clockwork at 1 a.m. The second crew shows up at about 4:15, and they get to work. The track folks pack it in because by the time anything gets dismantled, there won't be enough time to get anything done and put it all back together to start moving trains by 7. Second night, the shift change was a little smoother, so they got out there at 3:45. Managed to get a little work done before packing up. Third and fourth night, it rained really hard. So the drive back to the shop and out to the job site took extra time. No work done after the new crew showed up at 4:30. Bright and early Monday morning, we show up at our morning meeting to find out the track guys got about 30% of the work done they planned for the week, and at this pace would finish a 6 weeks job more than 15 weeks behind and over budget by more than 300%. Mr. MBA proceeds to launch into his carefully rehearsed speech about key metrics, percent spent versus percent complete, and all sorts of other nonsense. Then he decides to start in on me, since I obviously conspired and colluded with my employees to egregiously erode progress for an entire week. I held up the meeting minutes from the previous week, told him in no uncertain terms that he had asked, in fact, demanded that we have a full shift change in the middle of the track department's work. I looked across the table at him and asked him if he wanted to revise that position. Completely unwilling to let this lowly engineer tell him what to do, he said no, and I was supposed to somehow magically make the shift change faster. Next 3 weeks, the same story. They've now been out there for a month and have managed to accomplish just shy of a week and a half of work. Mr. MBA shows up on the site one night just in time to watch my night guys walk off, watch the track guys shut down the machines and gather outside to smoke, hang out, and generally carouse because they know they now have 3 hours to screw off and be paid for it. My guys had called me when Mr. MBA showed up, so I get out of bed and get to the job site just in time to see this guy in his shiny, fresh from the package safety gear, screaming at the top of his lungs to get back in their equipment and get the, naughty word, back to work. They all refuse because they all know they can't work without us there. Not that they care all that much about our equipment because they know Mr. MBA has been throwing a little too much weight around, and nothing makes union employees stick together better or faster than putting the screws to a manager who really needs it. I walk up during a profanity-laced tirade and cut right in and say, well, Mr. MBA, I'm sure you're not suggesting that these qualified employees should violate Rule XXX, which clearly states that they shall not under any circumstances run that equipment through a switch that the signal department hasn't checked, would you? That would be a serious violation and could get him a 30-day suspension without pay. And if you were to suggest that he do that, you wouldn't have a union card in your pocket, and he would have 30 witnesses that saw you give him that directive, so you wouldn't be suggesting that, would you? He turned 3 shades of purple, stomped back to his little white company sedan, and drove away. He held on to his asinine mid-shift change for another 2 weeks until he couldn't hide the massive production delays from his boss anymore. And suddenly, he wasn't in charge of the estimates anymore. That total cost of his little venture? Just over $940,000 over the course of 6 weeks. But he did manage to save $700 a night on those off hours he didn't have to pay for. Edit. Without a doubt, the best part of this post is that I'm up to 11 different railroads being mentioned between the posts and the DMs of guys swearing that this has to be their railroad. All right, so our next story is coming from r/malicious compliance. Teenager grounded from driving gets even. Years ago, my youngest daughter was a teen. She had a truck that she could drive to and from school. Well, as most teens are, she managed to get herself grounded. Don't remember why now. Dad took her keys and grounded her for 2 weeks. This meant she should be riding the school bus to and from school or walking. We lived on a farm just outside of a very small town. The high school was just over a mile from our house as the crow flies. Our daughter was also a barrel racer and had a few horses. Her horses had been trained to go home if they lost her rider, our daughter, as daughter often rode her at the arena on the other side of town or way out in the far fields. If we saw the horse without rider, we knew there was a problem, way before cell phones. Her dad and I both walked off the farm and left early in the morning, well before daughter would go to school, and didn't get home till around 6 in the evening. For some reason, she wasn't complaining too much about being grounded from her truck. What we found out later, actually much later, was that she was riding her oldest horse bareback and just to haul her to school and then turning the horse loose to go home. A friend would give her a ride home, and she would put her horse back in the proper field before we got home. All we could do is shake our head as she didn't drive her truck to school for 2 weeks. But she didn't also ride the school bus. After all, what 16-year-old farm girl would want to ride the bus? Our next story comes from r/TIFU, posted by Xanax Giggles. TIFU by accidentally switching book bags and exposing my sexual self-improvement phase to my boss. So during my lunch break today, I decided to hit up a bookstore. Trying to be better, learn more about myself, Picked up 2 books, one about sexual development and intimacy, the other about confidence in relationships. All educational, but let's just say the covers don't hold back. Anyway, fast forward to me back at the office post-lunch. Boss calls me to a quick meeting. I bring my stuff, drop my bag next to me. We're talking about quarterly reports or whatever. At some point, I reach into what I think is my bag to grab a notebook. Instead, I pull out Awaken Your Inner Orgasm and The Sensual Brain in front of my very serious, very senior manager. We both paused. Time stopped. Even the fluorescent lights flickered in shame. Turns out I'd accidentally grabbed someone else's book bag at the shop. Mine had been switched, and now I was not only the sexual wellness guy, but also the lunchtime kink reader. Manager didn't say anything, just raised one eyebrow like he'd unlocked a hidden HR side quest. I mumbled something about wrong bag, not mine, educational purposes. It didn't help. I'm never showing my face in that meeting room ever again. Our final story in this episode is coming from r/TIFU, posted by user Benji Fenwick. TIFU by renaming someone's dog. So I was at a celebration of life, and a few family members I had never met were there. These people brought their dog. I didn't know whose dog he was. I was swimming as the celebration of life was at a lake, and the dog comes up to me. He didn't have a name on his collar, so I looked at him and decided he looked like a Paulo. So I started calling him Paulo. I did this for the 3-day celebration until one of the owners saw what I was doing and asked why I was calling him Paulo. I said no one told me his name and he looks like a Paulo. They then told me his name was Benjamin. I said sorry, I had been listening to Paulo, so I just went with it. They asked what I meant, so I walked away and called for him using Paulo. He ran right over and sat down. They then tried to call him using Benjamin. He didn't move. They tried again, nothing. Twice more, and nothing. Then they said Paulo. He ran right over. They gave him a middle name of Paulo that day. I'll probably never see them again, but I'll forever know their dog is now Benjamin Paulo because of me. Mini update. I was just informed he was a rescue and they changed his name to Benjamin when they got him. Maybe his name was Paulo all along. So thanks for being with us. The RR Show is a production of Evergreen Podcasts and Wessler Media. Now, if you'd be so kind, please follow or subscribe to our show wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're feeling extra nice, you might as well leave a 5-star review. But for more, visit the website, rrshow.com. That is rrshow.com. I'm your host, Vince, and we'll see you next time here on The RR Show.